Welcome to the Festival of Storytellers.
I can't tell you how excited I am to be on right now. It's been a couple of weeks of excitement, getting prepared, and I've done a lot of things in my life, but this has got to be close to the top.
Thank you, and Reader's Magnet, and thank you, John, for putting this forth and taking the chance on us authors in presenting this out to the world.
I've enjoyed this immensely, Joanne.
Ellie, so have I. Thank you for who you are, and thank you, Reader's Magnet. You all are beautiful, and you've worked so very hard, and we are blessed.
We are.
I thank everybody that's involved with this process, because we know writers need readers and writers need publishers. We thank Reader's Magnet and everybody that's involved. I love Reader's Magnet. They say, we share your stories with the world.
Hello, my name is Paul HATKE. I'm the author of this book, Moving the Tassels. Recent release of this through Reader's Magnet, whom I'm very thankful for. I'll tell you a little bit about it, or a little bit about my background first. I am located in Louisville, Kentucky with my wife, and I've retired from telecommunications with 41 years service. Retired for a little over 10 years, kicking around, trying a couple of different things. And writing a book was one of them. Start off with, I'll go to a couple of things of how the book originated. I have a few people that ask about that. This is from the time that it takes place during the time that I was in high school. Parallels that. It's not an autobiography. It's just things that did happen at that particular time. Things that were going on. Start off with the mention of the assassinations of Martin Luther King and Robert Kennedy. These were pretty tragic and, you might say, life-shaking events. Just a few years earlier, we had the assassination of John F. Kennedy. I think a lot of young people were wondering where we were going as a country. And that's part of what the book's about. Also, what was going on was Vietnam War. It's kind of a backdrop of this. A lot of people were seeing things from the television news, where they may have got their news from the papers before, or maybe newsreels from seeing a movie. They were now seeing them in their living room. And color had kind of come into the scene. We were mostly black and white TV in the 50s and early 60s, and now technology had kind of moved us into what one of the stations kind of referred to as living color. And it was a difficult time watching the news when you've seen so many of these casualties from Vietnam. It really got people thinking along different lines. And that's part of what the story is. It started off with how I started this story. I actually wrote what was pretty much a true story, it'd be chapter 4. And it was about high school football. There's 3 of us. A friend of mine that was attending college, he's a year older than me. Another guy that had dropped out of high school and joined the Marine Corps. And he was home on leave from, he'd been through boot camp, and he was telling us a little bit about things. It was at times pretty humorous, and wrote down a few things. I wasn't really very good friends with this guy, but it did prove to be kind of entertaining, and that's how the story kind of got started. Okay, if I have any viewers or anybody that may be tuning in, welcome some questions, and I'll do what I can to answer them. Kind of watching on that. And if we don't have any, I'm going to cover a couple other things. Let's see. I am going to mention something that had been brought up. Okay, we got something from Lee. It says, what comes first for you, the plot or the characters, and why? This would probably have been the characters. As I said, chapter 4 of the book was kind of how this was based, and I put some chapters on each side of that. And the reason for that, the people I was out with this one night many years ago, back in 1968, were 2 particular characters. They were a little bit better friends, I guess, than what I had realized. The one guy who had just been home from the Marines was not really a very close friend of mine. In fact, I didn't really care for him a whole lot. But as I said, he was kind of interesting. One of the funny stories about that. These 2 guys got in a fight one time, and the older of the 2 of them, happened to break the guy's nose. And during the Marine Corps, he had to do some pool work, and he was having trouble swimming and his breathing as he was above the water, but his nose never did work quite right. And he told us a little bit about that, and it was kind of comical the way he mentioned that. But the characters definitely were how I started with this. Ending up the story in chapter 11 was a little bit more difficult. I wanted everything to kind of tie in together and make sense. And I guess the plot of it was a little bit more difficult than I expected it to be. But I do thank you for your question. Do we have any more? Okay, Kim, what perspective or beliefs have you challenged with this work? That's a pretty good question. It's interesting. What beliefs? I guess I would have to say the belief in people that look for somebody to support them. There's mention of the military in this a little bit. It was a very conflicting time between the younger people and the older people, the older generation, my parents' generation, I should say. They most of them had been through World War II, and that was a time where the country really solidified, I believe, with our allies to fight Germany in World War II. Pretty much Hitler, I think, had the idea of dominating the entire world. There's so many tragic things that had occurred through his time running Germany. And when the Vietnam War was going on, there was a conflict between generations because I think, to me, a lot of younger people were seeing that the Vietnam War was more of a political war, is more of a war of making money for big business than actually trying to curtail, kind of cut short somebody trying to take over the world. That didn't seem to be a threat. May have been a minor threat. People thinking that communism was going to be dominating that part of the world. And to me, it turned into, not to me, but to a lot of other people, it turned into something that was more something to make profit at the expense of American lives. Whether that's true or not, I'm not really sure, but that seemed to be kind of a general consensus. And one of the things that to try to answer that question, I believe the people that did serve over there realized that their comrades, that camaraderie among a lot of Marine Corps, Army, no matter what group was over there fighting or doing their part, they realized that these are people that have my back. These are people I can depend upon. And I think it's come to light more as the last few years have come about. We're seeing that people that had served at that time are getting respect, from a little more respect than they had in the past. When I see somebody that's wearing a ball cap saying Vietnam veteran or something of that effect, I try to acknowledge that, because these people went through a very difficult time, not only overseas, but sometimes even coming home. There's some stories I heard, and I think they are due respect. I hope I got the answer to your question a bit on that. If I didn't, my apologies. Okay. Have you ever traveled as research for your book? I've done some traveling. It's mostly been in the United States, but nothing toward the research. I know that's a good way to write a book, taking notes and having that firsthand experience. James Michener, I believe, did a lot of that. One of the authors from several years ago, he wrote some very good books, and I would like to, but no, I haven't really done that. Thank you for that question. Okay, Fair Order 2281 says, has writing and publishing a book changed the way you see yourself? Not really. I have not had the success I'd hoped to in this field, and that would probably definitely have a change on toward me. But I'm not the young person I had hoped to have success in this at writing, and I was thinking that I could have left the career I had in telecommunications and went into writing books. I always wanted to write about 4 or 5 good bestsellers of some sort. And had I done that earlier in my life, that may have been the case. But for right now, I just kind of piddle with it. I enjoy doing this. I guess it's more of a hobby than anything. And I thank you for that question also. Okay, Lee, what is significant way your book has changed since the first draft? Really not a whole lot. The print in this second first draft. Oh, my apologies. Okay. Um, let's see. I guess just trying to edit out some of the words I had in there. I used "I" so much on the first draft, and I thought if this is being read by somebody, they'll probably be pretty bored with hearing "I did this, I did that." It was all about I did, excuse the pun or whatever on that. Try to change and edit out the proper pronoun "I" quite a bit from the first draft. It was overused. Thanks for your question, Lee. Any more? Okay. Do you have anybody okay. Is your book influenced by another book? If so, what is it? It really is not. There's a couple of people I did read their writings, and their way of writing was very impressive. Older authors, as with a lot of people, I always enjoyed reading something from Ernest Hemingway and F. Scott Fitzgerald. But I could not say my name with theirs. To me, they were two of the greats, and I enjoyed how they wrote. Both of them were different. They both wrote their novels, their books around the same period of time, and I did enjoy the way they brought their stories around. But once again, they're the giants to me. Thank you for your question. Any more questions? Okay. Do want to add? There's a couple of different ways to purchase this book if you have the interest. To purchase it through Amazon, purchase it through Reader's Magnet, or paulhatkebooks.com, and I think Barnes and Noble can get this for you also. Okay. Something I do want to mention on here. Very often I do reflect on back to my high school years. It was a remarkable time for me. Oh, here we go, another question. Okay, for you, how is our decision impact our lives? How does our decision? No, I'm not sure if I'm reading that right. I'm going to try to change this wording a little bit. How does our decision impact our lives? I guess through all our lives, we do have to make different decisions. I think there's different points in your life when you do that. This particular book, I'm writing about a young man in high school that was facing stuff after graduating from high school. He was trying to decide whether if he should be going to college, if he should be going into the military, and the drawbacks of each one of them. He wasn't a particularly good student, unlike his sister, who was a very good student. She seemed to have better focus on what she wanted in the future. And he was still kind of weighing the ideas. He was looking around and seeing what his peers were doing, and whether if he decided to kind of follow in their paths or what he felt was right for himself. Of course, as we continue on in life, there's a number of things, a number of choices we do have to make, what our career might be, our choice of our person through life if we have a companion, how we're going to live our life with them, our sacrifices and such that we go through. Hope I answered your question on that. And if we have any more. Okay, once again, to this, I do seem to be quite nostalgic. I guess that comes with getting older a little bit. And I mentioned the high school years when I was going to school and right after I graduated. At that particular time, the late 1960s, I kind of feel stuck in that time, but it was such an interesting time. And I hope that's related in the book, or I hope if my book is read, people will get that understanding. We had so many changes. Technology had changed so many things. Music had changed. In the mid 60s, we had something that just, if you did not live through that particular time, and you still hear about them, the Beatles and the musical groups from Great Britain were just, they took us by storm. Every day, it just seemed like there was a new group, rock and roll group, or a new performer that had something to deliver, something to sing, draw our interest, and such a variety. It's just is amazing in the world of music, especially rock and roll music. And from there, we were preparing to, if you kept up with current events, we were making preparations to go to the moon. Major technological feat. This is not covered in my book because it had not happened during that particular period, but shortly afterward it did. And just the preparation of that, all the money and the research, the technological capability we gave ourselves, and things that are used today, they're created today because of that development of technology, what was used. It's just a fabulous time. We had bad times. Don't get me wrong, there's so many things we went through, but as with so many people, we have a tendency to forget the real bad times and reflect back on so many of the good times. Okay. Do I have any more questions? Okay. I am going to go back on something that was asked the other day when I had one of these sessions. Somebody was asking some of the tips, some of the hints that may be used in our writing. I went through a creative writing class several years ago, quite a few years ago, and one of the things that was brought up that we did as a class was a form of brainstorming. Somebody would bring up, usually the teacher brought up a topic, and we jumped around on that from what he had said. I can't remember the particular thing he started with, but it's very interesting to see how people's thinking went from one point to another. And I wish I had written some of that down, but I remember he covered that. He was talking about how we will reflect, or we will bring up the point that may be associated with some of the kind of work we do or some of the things we're familiar with. It's pretty neat. I don't know if that's a common thing in creative writing classes, but I remember that particular point and really enjoyed that. It's an interesting class. Okay. Once again, I was talking about that particular time, the late 1960s. And although I did think it was such a wonderful time, I honestly believe everybody thinks at the time that they grow up in, they're raised as a young adult, and few following years that come about, they think it's the best time, and maybe it is. Perhaps it is. There's often people that make comments, or I hear different things about people saying, "I'm glad I lived when I did because this is this way or this is that way," and I feel we all go through particular times in our lives where things occur that are difficult, have us tested a little bit. But maybe, just maybe, the time that you do live in is the best time. Maybe it's the best time for you. I don't know. It's hard to say. Okay, should be wrapping up here in a little bit, but be glad to answer another question or two if somebody wants to ask something. I hope I've answered some of these questions somewhat to your all's points. One or two of them kind of threw me a little bit, but I apologize for that. I hope I did answer somewhat in what you wanted or somewhere close to what your question had asked. No others. Okay. Let me see. Go and mention a couple of things. Oh, Lee. Okay, Lee's being very complimentary to me, and I do appreciate that. Thank you, Lee. That's that's very encouraging. Thank you, sir. Sorry, I used gender on that. I was thinking Lee's a gentleman, but I could be wrong. If it, I'm just going to say thank Lee as a person for making that comment. Appreciate it. Okay. I'm going to mention just a couple of things. I was mentioning music earlier, and here are a couple of things that I had jotted down, and just to show the strength of their popularity, that still you still hear many things pertaining to them. We had a couple of musical or a couple of songs that were just music by themselves. Classical Gas was a song on a classical guitar with a little bit of background on this. It's by Mason Williams, and this song is still played a lot of marching bands during football games or parades and such. We also had some very different music that developed, kind of acid rock or division of hard rock through Jimi Hendrix experience. Still hear much about Jimi Hendrix. Group Cream that featured Eric Clapton. Also had Led Zeppelin that came in late of the 1960s, and those groups are still very popular on a number of radio stations. Their music still played quite a bit, and of course we can't forget the Beatles. They've have been strong throughout. One of those songs you kind of get involved with, and you sing the refrain on there. "Hey Jude" by the Beatles was very popular. I think it's one of the more popular songs, and it's got that tune that kind of refrains in your mind. Sometimes it's one of those songs that'll stick with you all day long. I think we had some fabulous music. I'll reiterate on that. It's just an interesting time. There's a couple of things in history that did occur in the late 1960s. We had President Richard Nixon that had won the White House, took command of the office in 1969. Part of this may have been by the split ticket they had between Hubert Humphrey and George Wallace. Some people had mentioned that this was the reason Nixon got in office. He left office on his second term a little bit early, the Watergate scandal that occurred several years later. But one of the things he had mentioned was trying to end the Vietnam War, and I think he was instrumental in doing that. It actually occurred after his vice president, Gerald Ford, had taken office after Nixon had stepped down, but the last of the troops of Vietnam had left the country during the Ford administration. And I don't think President Nixon was given too much credit for that, but he had started that particular movement to get the troops out of Vietnam. Okay, let me see. Show that we may be getting close to closing. I don't know if Michael has anything to say about that, but yes, I'll try to wrap this up. Once again, I'd be glad to have somebody purchase my book. If somebody would want a signed copy, they could probably get it through my website, paulhatkebooks.com. And let's see, if there's anything else we need to do on this, I don't know. Is there any last questions I might be able to answer real quick? That's not okay. Michael, we still okay on this? All right. Well, okay. Okay, well, I guess that's all at this time, and I thank you all for your attention, and I will say goodbye to you. Take care. Stay safe.